Hello, my name is Reverend Lethelma Yimbata, Associate Executive Director of American Baptist Women's Ministries, and I am your host today for Iron Sharpens Iron Table Talk. Iron Sharpens Iron is our Women's History Month program. AB women leaders, partners, and friends will be sharing their Iron Sharpens Iron moments and advice. Be sure to tune in every Monday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time for our talks. Please share your Iron Sharpens Iron moments in our Facebook comments. Today, we have three esteemed guests with us. We have Michelle Birdsall, Deputy Executive Director, Treasurer, and Chief Financial Officer for the American Baptist Home Mission Societies. We
Mm.
have Magda Amargos, Development Advisor at American Baptist Foundation. And last but certainly not least, we have the Reverend Dr. Stapleton, Associate Pastor at First Baptist Church, Lincoln Gardens. All right, ladies, let's not keep the audience waiting. Let's share our Iron Sharpens Iron moment. So, Michelle, we would love to hear your moment first.
Okay, I get to go first. Well, thank you for inviting me to this table. It is a rare occurrence for me to be able to be among women in this way. So as I thought about the question that you posed, a moment where I've been sharpened by another woman, there were a couple of instances that came to mind for me. And what was common in those instances that came up for me is that in those moments, the women provided a mirror
Mm.
to help me see aspects of Michelle that were previously invisible to me, yet visible to others. And so that providing a mirror is just an extremely valuable way of sharpening another person. One specific instance where that happened for me was during my master's degree program at American University. So I was in a master's degree for organization development. And I've had a desire to be a consultant to help people bring about the kind of change that helps them to reach their potential. And so in this particular instance, it was a rare moment of self-disclosure for me. I had shared with a classmate my experience of being sexually abused as a child. Not something I tend to
Mm.
share with other people. But in this instance, God was in the moment and I shared this very personal fact with her. And she responded to me with great care. But what she did in her mirroring was she noted that as I was talking and sharing this experience, she said I didn't have any emotion. I wasn't sharing or showing any type of emotion. As I was sharing what she was sure had to be a painful memory. And it was in that moment of mirroring the incongruence between what I was sharing and what I was emoting. It was an invitation for me to really breathe, take in what she had just said to me,
Mm.
let the truth touch me in a way that was not typical. Um, and so, in that simple act of mirroring for me, it really did help to pierce the self protective armor I had built around my heart. There was at that moment, and still is for me today, deep pain, anger, and shame connected to that memory. But I had never before then fully allowed myself to feel it. But in that moment, what she did for me was rather than divert attention away from my uncomfortable truth, she created a space for me that was safe enough for me to make contact with my own pain. And I've been on a healing journey ever since.
Wow, Michelle, that is a very, very powerful story. When you spoke about the mirror and this person being a mirror for you, it reminded me of Christ the mirror, like Christ being our mirror and reflecting back to us. And it just amazes me when we're in community with one another and we allow ourselves to be sharpened. It is that mirror that reveals to us who we are, and like you said, you got to the opportunity to really feel all of the pain and the anger and the shame that you had not necessarily allowed yourself to feel before. What a transformative experience. Thank you so much for sharing so vulnerably and openly with us as well. We really treasure that with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Any
listening.
other feedback for Michelle or Magda? Would you like to go next? Or did you
Uh,
have something to say, Reverend Stapleton?
well, I was going to actually say that my iron sharpens iron story is very similar.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
having experiences, it's always amazing to me when I hear a sister talk about going through some sexual abuse or some kind of abuse as a child. When I went to answer my call, I was sexually abused by the pastor that I went to say, and I was a teenager. And it took me a long time before, um, after that particular incident, I just ran completely from the call. I was like, how could God do this? What, how could this happen to me? Having been a fighter, a bully, a person that was always out there, and I was like, no, 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 no. I quit. I was like, never, ever. And it took a woman, Vasti Bishop, the right Bishop, Vasti Mackenzie Murphy, who I'm a member of the Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and she happens to be our national chaplain, but she is the first African American woman bishop in the AME Church. And I was a Baptist then, I'm a Baptist now, but it took her preaching one at an event and saying, "Put your baggage down." And then and it was the words still penetrate my heart, because she said, "Put you're carrying these trunks around, women, and you need to put it down. And once you put it down, don't pick it back up.
Mm,
Go on your journey without that baggage, without that trunk." And then she asked at the end of her sermon, she said, "All of those who put their baggage down, stand up." I'm sorry. She said, put your baggage down, stand up." And I stood up, and she and I talked to her about it after the service, but then she and I became friends through the sorority, and I got to know her, and we talked about it. And it was such a healing process that she would take the time to, one, get to know me. Um, at the time, she wasn't a bishop. She would, and then I worked, as just on the outside trying to help raise money for her when she was running for a bishop, and just to that she became in some ways a mentor without it being called a mentor and advisor. But when I finally, it took me a while even after that to go back and answer my call. And when I answered my call, it was still because she became a role model and someone that I could talk with, or and follow and just listen to. So sometimes we don't know when we are in a position um, of, and especially as women in some form of ministry, because I think all of us are in ministry, regardless of what the title is. So, but sometimes we don't know who is the one, and as women, we just need to listen,
mhm,
and we need to be intentional about what we're saying
mhm,
when we say it, and when we share, and telling our stories. letting people know that it wasn't easy, um, because it took me a long time after that particular sermon. After I put my baggage down, I did return to church, which was very interesting. I returned and started in a Lutheran church, and then came back to the Baptist church. It took a while to come back to the Baptist church, and once I came back to the Baptist church, I've always been intentional about to whom I listen in the
Mhm.
pulpit,
Mhm.
because I know that, um, regardless, not everybody is who they say they are,
Mhm.
and that it's not a performance for me. It is something that is very meaningful, and that when I get up to preach, the words are intentional because I know they're going to touch somebody,
Mhm.
and I want them to understand that, when I'm finished either preaching or teaching, that they can feel safe and comfortable and know that there is somebody there. So it's always for me. I use iron sharpens iron so much that when you asked me to do it, I was like, yes. So I'm sorry I missed your emails, but it's so important that as women we speak and tell our stories, that we listen to the stories, and that we are so willing to share. So I thank you, Michelle, for opening that door. I thank you for sharing, because the stories aren't easy to share. I've just gotten to the point where I say it, and I say it like it was easy for me to say, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
Because the more people who know that much about you, sometimes people look at you differently. But I grew to the point where when I put the baggage down, I was like, yeah, that wasn't my shame. That was his shame. Um, I've had one regret about it, was that he died before I could say to him, I forgive you.
Mm.
Because that to me was part of my healing process, was to be able to say it to his face. I forgive you,
Mhm.
because of what you did, it took me longer to become the minister. Nevertheless, and I love that word. Nevertheless, God allowed me to grow and to see and to come full circle with who I am, and to honor even things that happened, that thing that happened to me, that horrible thing that happened to me, to honor myself and to know that it wasn't me.
Wow. I really love what you're sharing, Reverend. Particularly that it was very interesting to me too that you said, when you were able to let go of that baggage, that's when you were able to really fully enter into space God has called you into, and thus you're now making that space safer for other individuals. And I think that that is so powerful, um, and such a redemptive um, narrative around your pain. And I really am so grateful that you were in that room, and that that message you received that message in that way that provided some healing. And now you're using your space with intentionality that often is not there in the pulpit. So I'm just so thankful for your voice and your story in this moment. And it was divine that you two had to be on the call together. And so thank you so much for sharing. We'll love to hear from you, Magda, your iron sharpens iron moment.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, all of you, Thelma, for inviting me, and the two of you for sharing such a strong and touching testimony, and I appreciate that very much. Um, and it's interesting because I was thinking when La Thelma put me through this, well, I put myself because I accepted it, but I was thinking, what are those things that we have done, or that we have received? Because we've done many things and we've received so much. And I started thinking, and one instance that came up to mind was when a friend was going through a divorce.
Mhm.
Friends in church, and when things happen to us, at times we can figure out, like, Pastor, the way you say, how could God let this happen to me? I mean, I was a leader in the church. My ex-husband was a deacon. You start not questioning God, because I wasn't questioning God. And that's one thing that I was thankful that I was in the church that I'm in for over 30 years now, because my pastor is a very, very open-minded person, very realistic, with the Bible in the hand, but with the 2 feet, solid on the ground, in the ground, so that he didn't talk to me about, oh, you need to be spiritual, you need to pray, which I've heard and I've had to help friends going through. And it's interesting that it comes from somebody that is our religious, if you want to call it that way, or Christian leader. But anyway, nothing that they're having many others that are not. So going through that, my two main concerns when it happened to me was, how do I tell my father, because my mother had passed the year before, and then how am I going to tell the people in church? And I realized that probably a lot of women go through this.
Mhm.
They feel shame. They feel, what are they going to think I did wrong? But I worked all that. And that helped me so much to help others that go through the same situation. Just to know, just because you're a Christian, that doesn't mean you don't get divorced. you know, it happens. And especially if it's not a good marriage. Mine wasn't. Mine just ended just like that. Um, we became more friends than anything. But anyway, the point is that it helped me to empathize and to be able to help others. In fact, my pastor calls me every once in a while and say, talk to so and so. She's going through a divorce. So then, but I that makes me feel good, in that although I went through something that it wasn't devastating, it really wasn't, but it's difficult more because you feel, I'm a leader in the church, and how are people going to look at me this way? Hey, I'm a woman, I'm a person, and God is going to use me, and He has, and I'm thankful to God for that, and to be able to tell others it happens. Don't feel guilty, but also don't become a victimizer. Because
Mhm.
sometimes um, we take it too personal, or we feel too sorry for ourselves. And I think that's the worst thing that a person can do. I think God has made us special, and He has given us all gifts, in which we just need to know that God is going to turn whatever, as bad as it is, it's going to turn into something good. So I thank God that I went through that experience, um, and make me more sensible, and being able to help others while going through that. And I thank him for my pastor, because he's like, okay, this is not the end of the world. The church, don't worry, the church knows you. So I continue to worship and to work in the church, just like if I was the same married person. So I that was quite an experience.
Yeah, Magda, what your story recalls for me is just, it reminds me of just the narratives of how we define ourselves as women, right? The being married is often the greatest achievement, right? Or how we identify ourselves, because society makes that the greatest part of us. And so what your story reveals to me is a redefinition of who you, in that moment, you were redefined, right? You're not defined by being married or unmarried.
Right.
You're defined by being a child of God and being
That's right.
a servant, a disciple of Christ, and leading in
Mhm.
your church community. And so I think for me, that's really important. I think it's really important for our listeners to like, how are we defining ourselves, to ask ourselves, what is the foundation of our identities? And is it Christ? Is it our suffering? Is that the foundation of our identity? Or
Mm-hmm.
our pain? But or is it the reality that no matter what, in our suffering, in our joys, in our sorrows, we belong to God ultimately.
That's right. Amen.
And so that's what your story brings up for me. So I really thank you for sharing, because I feel that that was a very difficult time for you. We care a lot about, especially when we are leaders. Every one of you on this call are leaders, and so people are looking at you, admiring you, and that's a lot of pressure when you feel like something, a key part of your identity has shifted. But it shifted in a good way, in that you recognize who you really who you really are. Yeah. So thank you so much. Any feedback, ladies,
Thank you.
to Magda, or anything I
Well,
have?
one of the things that it reminded me of was because I use it as my mantra,
Mhm.
139, you have searched me, Lord, and you know me. And then going down to verse 13, for you created my innermost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know them full well. And so both of the stories just reinforce that my mantra, my mantra psalm, and that we really are, all of us are just wonderfully and fearfully made,
Amen.
and that no matter what we go through, that we are being sharpened as we sharpen.
Yes.
So their story sharpened me.
Yeah, yeah. One of the thoughts that came as I was listening to you, Magda, is something that I hold very close to my heart, is that no experience we have is ever wasted.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
And when we're going through difficult times, not knowing how we're going to make it to the other side of that, none of that is ever wasted, because God uses that. He transforms those experiences into bread for somebody else through our life. And so, I've gone through a series of things over my journey so far. And I can look at each one of them and see how God transformed each one of those challenging experiences
Mm.
into something that I could share with another woman or another person. Usually it's another woman, to let her know that it's tough right now. And it's okay for it to be tough. It's okay for you to cry. It's okay for you to own how difficult this is. But I'm living proof that you get to the other side of it.
Amen.
And so that's what both of your stories just reminded me of again.
I
Yeah.
love what you said about it becoming bread, becoming life giving for somebody else, something that was almost, could have taken us out emotionally, literally. It becomes bread and sustenance for someone else. That is so powerful. What a beautiful, imagery that is. I really love that, Michelle. And on with that, would you mind starting us off with the three pieces of advice that you want to leave?
Sure. So my three pieces of advice actually come from advice I received from other women. The first one is, if you wall yourself off from pain, you will also wall yourself off from love.
Mm.
Yes,
So
big one.
don't be afraid of the pain,
Mm,
Mm. Mm.
because love is right there with the pain,
mm,
and the love will conquer the pain. But
mm.
if you try to avoid the pain, you'll never tap into the love. So
Wow,
that's the first one.
powerful.
The second one is to breathe.
Mm.
I remember I was going through some denominational meetings that were pretty challenging at the time. And I had a close friend of mine on a break. She just looked at me and she said, "Breathe, Michelle." And I didn't even realize that I was holding my breath.
Mm,
Again, that mirroring that
mhm,
we can be for each other. So she helped me to be more mindful that I was holding my breath, and if I could just release it
mm,
and breathe. I would have enough strength to go into my next meeting. And then the final piece of advice is never leave home without a support system. All of us on this call are strong women. But even with our strength, we need support. And it's okay not to be strong all the time. So give some attention to building a support system for yourself so that no matter what you face over the course of an hour or a day, you know that there's somebody there that you can connect with, and allow God's Spirit to move through them to you. So those are my three.
Amazing. Wow.
Wow.
So much. I am all about, I resonated deeply with all three of those. And especially in the season of my life, having a community, a support system is so important. So thank you so much for sharing. Michael, do you want to go next?
Absolutely. Well, my 3D advisors come actually from basically one experience, and that was my choir director, not in my current church, but in my previous church. And her rehearsal technique consisted of having us all gather around her piano. And as she would play, I'm an alto, so she would play all the notes. And I know, like, Fatma, you're musical. So as she played the entire piece, you needed to find your alto part.
Mm.
Tenors and the sopranos, it's easier for the sopranos. I don't know if ladies, if any of you are sopranos, but it's easier for the sopranos. This is a melody. But anyway, so that taught me, no matter where I am, I may be listening to many voices, but I need to know my own voice. I need to be able to find my voice and to find this belongs to me, and this is what I need to be in. The second part of that was she would say, you cannot sing any louder. As you can see, I have a loud voice. So, all of us, it was a huge choir that would say, you can sing too loud. You need to listen to each other. So that then you can hear everything and everybody. And then you'll see if you're singing right or if you're singing wrong. And to me, that again that marked me for the rest of my life, because I learned I need to listen, because if I don't listen, then my participation may be so totally wrong, or I could just go completely off of where I really need to be. And the last thing would be, when you rehearse, it's like it was the sopranos or it was the tenors. She said, never, don't waste time blaming anybody else. If you messed up, just say, oh, my fault. I did wrong note. And then just leave it behind, pick up again and go. And again, it was a life experience teaching. She taught me so much through that, because it's like, even to this day, in fact, even through that divorce that I talked to you about before, I said, I know what my responsibilities were. I know what part was my responsibility. I accepted it, and I just said, and let's go forward. So to me, that's very important as well. It's just to acknowledge in anything we do what is our fault or our responsibility, and then just say, okay, I made a mistake. Let's go on. And to me, those three advices in one rehearsal stay with me for, trust me, many years now, and have been helpful in life.
Amazing.
Wow.
I love the beautiful reference. Find your voice.
Amen.
Listen to the other ones, and don't blame people. Recognize your
But
mistake and move forward.
yeah, take responsibility.
Responsibility.
but don't get stuck there, because we need to continue. We need to sing the entire piece. So if you stay there, you mess it up.
The end of the world, right? We hold on to that, and we want to perfectionism, and life isn't about that. It's about the process, and so I love it because then you can make beautiful music in your life, right? If you just
Mm.
like, yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
All right, Rev, you're gonna take us home with your three pieces.
Did they not take all of my three pieces?
That is
But there's more. I guess there's more. There's always more, right? There's always more. I know you're gonna say that to me, but I was like, "Wow, wait a minute. Okay, wait. Next time I'm gonna try to go first." But uh, the first thing I would say is pay it forward. That as you lift as you climb. I mean, that's something that's really important. Don't if you're the first, you're not the only. I love that our Vice President Kamala Harris says that I may be the first, but I'm not going to be the last.
Right.
And we need to think that way because oftentimes as women, we might be the first.
Mm-hmm.
And as women of color, we might be the first, but don't be the last. And don't close the door. Pay it forward. Make sure that that while you're being sharpened, while you're growing, that you're also mentoring, you're also coaching, you're also advising, you're also bringing somebody else along because life is not promised to any of us.
Yeah.
And the glory is when you leave a legacy, and the legacy may be the person right next to you, and it's what you do that and who you leave to follow you. It's okay. Just pay it forward. Um, the other thing is, I just recently did a sermon, and it was three sisters. Two different moms but the same dad, and they were saying goodbye to their dad. And in the eulogy, I said to them, there's this song about dance. Don't if you have a choice between sitting it out and dancing, dance
Amen.
because there's such life. There is so much to life. And in dancing, you can forgive. And in dancing, you can do more than a two-step. You can be free because you are free. You're free to grow. You're free to be. And so I would just say dance. And in dancing, you can smile, and in dancing, you can feel the joy. And so when Michelle talked about getting over, yes, we can get over the pain. When you dance, you can just let it all go.
Amen.
So I would say dance, pay it forward, dance, and then and this one was kind of the last one was kind of tough for me because the first thing that came to mind was the greatest of these is love, faith, hope, and love. Yet the greatest of these is love. And then I wanted to say cry, because oftentimes when as strong women, we think that we can't cry or we're not supposed to cry. We're not supposed to show a weakness. We're not supposed to show a place of being vulnerable. And I think that is part of love, to be able to share like we did tonight, and to also today to share, but to share from a deep place, not just a surface hi, my name is.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy, but to be able to share and to be able to even cry, because in crying and sharing our tears, we're really sharing our love. And we're allowing somebody to come in to offer comfort, to come in and offer. some peace to come in and offer themselves and to allow them to feel our vulnerability, and then we can feel theirs as well. And so yes, the greatest of these is love. And in that love, we can cry, we can scream, we can even be angry, because love is a place that accepts everything. That's why, the agape love is so amazing to me, because it allows you to be who you are, so that you can pay it forward, and so that you can dance, and so that you can love and cry. So those are my three, sort of, plus something.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen.
I love the reminder to cry. And I never thought about crying being an invitation for someone else. It feels like just like exposing myself. But I love that perspective. Like when I cry, I am inviting others to receive love and to be vulnerable. Um,
Mhm.
that's a really helpful reminder. Um, and I think the thread that I hear through all of our conversation, through all the stories and the lessons that we've learned, it's just I just see the beauty of being human, right? To see, oftentimes I feel, especially as Christian women, we love the spiritual, right? So much. And I think that our iron sharpens iron moments gave us the permission to really fully be human, and that God created us to be human, to live the human experience. And I heard the beauty, the struggles, the triumphs of the human experience, and how God breaks through and transforms our lives. So I thank you so, so much for your time, for your vulnerability, for your wisdom. I don't take it for granted. I am soaking it all in, and I hope to apply all of what you said, and to my own personal life. And I'm sure our viewers will do the same. So I just want to say to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us this week. We would love to hear how you enjoyed our conversation. Please share in the comments and keep up with what's happening with ABWM by visiting our website at abwomensministries.org. Check out our upcoming events. We love to see you at our webinars, at our events. We would love to see you there. Thank you so much, and we'll see you